Hey there everyone, it's Nina Marie. Thanks for joining me today for another video. So in today's video, I'm going to be using some brand new products from Gina K Designs. It's her July release. It is a beauty. There's a lot of great stuff in this collection. But one of the things I wanted to share with you is the Beach Birds set. So this set is darling and I live by the beach, so it was definitely something that spoke to me and I couldn't wait to use. In addition to working on today's project with you, this is the card that we're creating, I also wanted to give you a new experience. So instead of my normal voiceover where I create the project and then voice it over later, I thought I'd try doing a little bit of crafting and talking at the same time. So we're actually going to make the project and I'm going to talk through it all, and I think it will be a lot of fun. So it'll be something different. I would love to hear what you think about this version versus my usual videos. So let me know in the comments below as we're creating here. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Okay, so I'm going to be using this super cute Beach Birds stamps and coordinating dies from the Gina K release. This stamp set is really cool because it has not just seagulls but also sandpipers. I love sandpipers, they're so sweet. This is a really cool stamp with the little trail that would make a great landscape card. But I'm going to make a card today using this. I have the coordinating dies here. I'm going to cut out the sandpipers and also the greeting that I'm going to be using from this set. All right, so I have my Misty here. I'm going to stamp these two sandpipers. And I'm gonna line these up onto my stamp here. You can see I've already used these before. They're just super good for a nice focal point on my project. So now I'm going to grab some white cardstock. I'm gonna stamp onto some Simon Says Stamp 120 pound white cardstock. And then for the stamping, I'm actually going to do a little heat embossing. I'm going to stamp with the Simon Says Stamp VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. This is a pigment ink, and the reason I'm using a pigment ink is because it will grab all of these really nice fine details of the stamps really, really well. But because I want to just add a little bit of color to the birds with some Copic markers, I need to make sure that I seal this ink. Because it's a pigment ink, I cannot use it with the Copic markers, it would smear. So by taking a little bit of my Simon Says Stamp Fine Detail Clear Embossing Powder, I'm going to sprinkle this over top and then we'll heat set it. So that way it traps the ink within the embossing powder. Alright, so I got my Fine Detail Embossing Powder. There we go, we've got our image. I can go ahead and heat set this. So I got my images here. They're all ready to go for a bit of coloring. All right, so the coloring is going to be really simple. I just have 3 Copic markers, and I'm just going to add just a little bit of color to the birds themselves. I don't want anything too crazy because there's a lot of detail on them, so I just want to add basically a little bit of shading. So I'm just coming in and adding a little bit of color here with these 3 shades. So there we go. That colors in the birds themselves. Now I will color in the water around them with a little bit of ink. I want to make this cute and easy. So I'm going to bring in Rainbow Splash Lake ink. This color I love for blues. And this is the color I'm going to use to help create the background for my card. So I just want a little bit of ink, and I'm just going to focus that ink right around their feet, and then just kind of fade it out as it comes towards the bottom here. So heaviest amount by their feet. I'm just creating a little bit of a shadow effect here. And this is going to get die cut, so I'm not really worried about the ink kind of being a little bit further around them, just because that's going to get cut off and it'll look really seamless. So now I can bring in the dies for the birds, and those I'm just going to tape down with a little bit of washi tape, just so that way they don't shift as I run them through my die cut machine. So just get these lined up, and you can see where I went past the feet of the birds, just so that way when I cut this, the color will be all the way across the die cut. Now you could color these after cutting too, but I just find it's a little easier to do it before die cutting. So we'll go ahead and run these through. All right, so I ran these through my die cut machine, and here we go. We've got our cute little birds, our sandpipers, and they are ready to get added to our card base, which is going to have a fun little stenciled scene on it. So we're going to build that next. All right, let's do some stenciling. I have my Simon Says Stamp craft tacky mat here. We're going to put this down. This is a tacky surface that is fantastic for holding not just your stencils in place, but also your paper too. So when you lay your paper down, it's not going to shift as you're ink blending. We're going to be stenciling with this Landscapes stencil set from Simon Says Stamp. And I know when you look at this, it's kind of like, well, how does this work? So these are little slits cut into the stencil. And what's great about this is that it gives you the option of putting your stenciling on either one side of the cardstock or the other. So if I slide my paper in here, you can see I can put the water along this side of the cardstock, or if I switch how I put the cardstock in, I could then have the water stenciled on this side of the cardstock. So it gives you options on how you use this. So for this, I'm going to have the stencil for the water actually be on this side of it, just so that way I can get a little bit of a horizon line here with this. So I'm going to lay my paper down along with the stencil onto this mat, so that way it does not shift while I'm working. Just make sure this is nice and straight, and then I'll press that down good. Okay. So for inks, I want to start off with Lake. This is the color that I used for the birds. So I want to do the same blue for the water in my scene. I'm going to use a small blending brush for this because I don't want to add too much color all at once. I want to work this in, and I kind of want to feather it out as I go to the edges. I don't want to have a super concentrated amount of color. So if I use a smaller blending brush, that's going to help me maintain a lot of control as I add this color down. So I'm just making sure to focus a little bit more of it in the middle and then feather it out as I come towards the edge. I'm also not going to come super far down into the paper because I'm going to shift the stencil and create a few extra wavy areas. But before I do that, I want to create the sand area that the birds are going to be sitting on. So let's pick up the stencil, and we're going to shift to create our ground. Now the ground is going to be made from this part of the stencil, and I want to create that sandy area with this side of that little horizon line. Because I'm going to add a few extra wave layers, I want to make sure I maintain that. I'm also going to lay my bird down just to see where that placement is and just make sure I like it. And I think that looks good. So like I did before, I'm just placing this stencil and paper onto my craft tacky mat. And now I'm going to bring in some brown ink. So this is Cookie from Simon Says Stamp. It's a really nice light brown, and I thought that would be a great color for this sandy area. Small blending brush again. Favorite type to work for this type of project where I want to maintain a lot of control and not add too much color. So I'm going to work along the top of the stencil here, along this edge, and then feather it down into this white area along here. Now, I do also want to add a little bit of stamping to this. I want to add some of those cute little impressions on the sand, little bird's feet impressions, along this side. So it looks like the birds have walked across the sand for this. And I want to keep it light because I don't want it to be super dark. So I'm going to leave it at that. And I will remove this so you can see what it looks like. So there we go. we've got our water and we've got our sandy shore. So at this point, I think I'm going to add those little extra details on the water. And for this, I'm going to go ahead and actually use the stencil from this side. I think I like that. So I'm going to, instead of using the other side of the stencil where I created the water, I'm actually using this side now to add the waves. All right, so I don't have a lot of room to go left and right, but I have room to go up and down. So I'm just going to work with that as I add these little wave areas to the water. I'm just putting a little bit of color right along this top edge. And then I'm going to shift my stencil and paper just to get a slightly different look. So I'm going to pull my paper up a little bit so that the next wave is a little lower. And then I'll add just a little bit of color. I'm not going too far up into the area, just so that way I don't change the color of the water too much. So then I'll just shift again here and then add a little wave on this side. Now we're ready to work on some sky. I want to add a sunset along the top. That's going to look really cool. And to do that, we're going to use the clouds. I want the clouds to stay white though, so that means I need them to be the mask area. So I'm going to lay this paper inside of the stencil like so. So I get a nice little white area for those clouds. And then this top section is going to have the color for that beautiful sunset effect. Yellow is a great color for sunsets. And I think I'm going to just kind of do an overall blend, but then come back in with a little bit of orange to create that really beautiful glow. I'm trying not to overwhelm this with too much yellow. I don't want it screaming at me. I did use a larger brush just to help me apply this a little bit quicker. Now I'm going to bring in the orange. And for orange, I'm using Simon Says Stamped Grapefruit. I used Dandelion from Rainbow Splash for the yellow. The orange, I do not want to add too much of. I want this to be soft and only focused along this bottom section. So I'm being very careful as I add this. And I'm just going to very carefully blend it up into that yellow. Just to give me that really nice, super beautiful golden touch to these clouds. This will really pop. And then if I want to, I can feather it out a little bit more with the yellow. You can hear Oscar in the background. He's running around playing with his toy. Hi, Oscar. We'll see if he comes up on the desk to say hi. All right, he might be too occupied by his toy. Okay, so we have our yellow down. And also the orange. Let me peel this up so you can see. Oh, that looks so beautiful. So there we go. We've got that great golden sky. To really enhance that golden touch to this, I want to create a little bit of yellow glow here. Hi, Oscar. Do you have things to say? Oscar has a lot to say, apparently. Yes. Were you playing with your toy? Will you come and say hi? All right, for this one, we need to bring the stencil back in along the water area. And I'm just going to line it up very carefully to get it repositioned where it was. I could have done this when I had this stencil position, but I kind of just thought of it as I was working. So you know what? You just kind of have to go with it. And just get it lined up as best as you can. If you're doing this and following along, maybe try going ahead and adding that yellow color as you're doing the blue. Okay, so this is where I want to add a little bit of yellow to create that beautiful, almost like a reflection, okay? So I'm just going to carefully bring this in along this section of the water. I'm not going to go across the whole thing, just in one section. All right, and just add a little bit of that yellow right through here. That goes really well with this part of the scene because we're gonna have the birds focused in this space also. So that just really looks good like that. I'm not going to go any further with this. All right, like I said, I'm going to use this set to add a little bit of stamping. This little trail of cute little footprints in the sand from the birds, so adorable. I'm gonna stamp all of this freehand with a clear block. You could come in with your Misty and stamp all of this, but I always love reaching for a clear block for smaller stamps. I don't know why. I feel like I have just a little bit more ease with this, so that's what we're gonna do. Ink up my stamp and then just add this right here along the right side. Perfect. Okay, and then I also want to add clouds to the sky. In this set, there are some little cloud images. I'm going to use the smallest one just to add some accents to the sky. We're going to clear block this one as well. And I'm going to use that same grapefruit that we used for the orange ink blending. We're going to stamp with this. So I definitely want a cloud there. I think I'm going to add another one right below it, just in this little nook. Okay, and then I'm going to add one more over here, not exactly lined up with that other one, just because I don't want it to feel super linear. I want to feel a little random, so I'm going to add it there. My sentiment's going to go here. So this adds a nice little framing around the greeting, but it also adds some interest and texture to that background. So next, I need to add a cute little gold frame around this piece. I want to frame up my image, my scene. So I want to have that gold frame on here. And then I'm also going to put this onto a teal card base because I really want to draw out some of this blue. So I'm going to go prep a couple things and then I'm going to come back and we're going to put this together. All right, so I've prepped a few things. I have this Simon Says Stamp A2 frames die set. This is such a great die set because all of these frames are perfectly proportioned for an A2 card. And they are a nice thickness that it's easy to work with. They don't warp when you die cut them. And they're just a great way to frame up a project. So I've cut some Simon Says Stamp matte gold cardstock with this. Oh, just look at that. It's gonna go so well on top of this piece and just frame it up so nicely. That golden color, just, oh, it looks so good with this. Okay. So this is going to get glued onto my piece here, and then this entire thing is going onto an A2 card that I have here made with Audrey Blue cardstock from Simon Says Stamp. Look how it brings out that teal color. It's just beautiful. So let's start gluing some things together. For the frame, I'm going to use Simon Says Stamp Positively Perfect Craft Glue. This is a thin adhesive, and it is great for using on paper projects. It just dries with a nice matte finish, and it's a very thin liquid adhesive, so you could put this into a fine tip bottle if you wanted to, like one of those needle tip bottles. I just like working it right out of the glue bottle itself, but you have that option. It will flow out of one of those fine tip bottles nicely. But it holds really well and does dry pretty quickly. So it's a great adhesive for gluing paper stuff together. So I'm going to line this up very carefully on my project. The nice thing is about using a liquid glue like this is that you do have a chance to shimmy it around a little bit and get your placement just right. Now, I don't like to press too hard because I have a tendency to end up getting glue to squish out the sides. So what I like to do is actually come through with my cloth. This is Simon Says Stamp black microfiber cloth, and wipe along the frame. This is doing two things. One, it's helping me press this frame down and get that glue to squish nicely down, but it's also cleaning off any extra glue that might have squished out the sides. So it's cleaning right up off of my frame, and I'm not getting any fingerprints on it. So now I just have this really nice finish. Looks great. Now I'm going to glue this onto my card base. I could use the liquid glue, but I don't like to wait for glue to dry. So I'm actually going to reach for my Terrific tape and just put this on the back side of my project. And this will adhere directly onto my A2 card. And the best part is I won't have to wait for this panel to dry. It'll be already attached instantly. Just because I need to keep working on it, I don't want to have to worry about it shifting. if I put liquid glue on the back side of this. Okay, so there's my card base ready to go. This is not a super bulky card, by the way, so this is easy to mail. Now we need our birds, and I'm going to attach these with foam squares. I love foam squares, and my favorite ones are the Simon Says Stamp foam squares because they come in varying sizes and also thicknesses. Now I'm using the 3D version today, but there are also thinner ones too. These are the white version. There are also black, so you've got options for what you're creating with. Okay, now I'm not going to press him down yet because I want to make sure I like the position of my other bird as well. So I'm going to wait to give him a really good press until I have this one in the scene also. And then once I'm happy with this, then I can press everything down. All right, I think that looks good. Now I will give them a press. So at this point I need to add my sentiment, and then we're gonna add some sequins. I have these beautiful sequins from Simon Says Stamp. This is such a beautiful like underwater mix. I love these. I have these linked in the video description, as well as all the other products that I'm using today, including the new Gina K stuff. Not just this set, but also all of the other new release products from Gina K. So there are a lot of great greetings in this stamp set. I honestly, you couldn't go wrong with most of these, but I really liked See You Soon. I thought this would go really well in the space. Some of these are a little too big maybe, but for the most part, most of these would fit nice and you wouldn't be able to go wrong with it. But for this particular card, I just really like the size of See You Soon, and I just thought it was a sweet greeting. So we're gonna stamp with that. I have some dark chocolate cardstock from Simon Says Stamp already in my MISTI, plus the stamp. Now I do need to prep the surface of my paper with a Simon Says Stamp powder tool, just so that way when I stamp with the embossing ink, it won't, the powder that I apply won't stick to anything else. So I'm using clear embossing ink from Simon Says Stamp. I'm going to ink up my sentiment. So now I'm going to bring in my embossing powder. For this, I'm going to use gold. I love a good gold sentiment, and especially with all the warm touches that we have on this card, the gold greeting's just really going to go nicely. So we'll sprinkle that on top, and then I'll go ahead and heat set this too. All right, so off camera, I went ahead and embossed my sentiment with my heat tool. Now I'm just going to take the coordinating die and cut this out. So I'm just going to tape this down while I run it through my die cut machine. I love that the greetings all have coordinating dies, so it makes it really fun. You can pop up your sentiments and do all sorts of other fun things too. All right, so I have my sentiment here. We just need to put this onto the card. I'm going to pop this up. This card is not super bulky, so I'm going to just use some of these really thin foam strips from Simon Says Stamp to add a small amount of adhesive to the back side, and then just lay this right here. I love putting something at an angle, and I'm trying to balance this with my birds here. I might actually bring this over just a little bit more. Trying to create a little bit of a visual triangle. Oh, I like that right there. Doesn't cover up the clouds. All right, so we have our sentiment. The last thing we need to do are adding a few of those fun sequins. So let's bring those in. I'm going to glue these down with the craft tacky glue, or the Positively Perfect craft glue that we used earlier. And I'm just going to kind of plan out where these are going. I definitely want one here and here. I'm trying to create a little bit of a trail. Maybe another one there. And that's an odd number, so I like that. All right, and to aid me in putting these on, I'm just going to use my craft pick here. This is from Simon Says Stamp. This is the Place and Score version. And pick up some of these sequins. I love these mirrored ones. And then maybe another one of those bigger ones here. Actually, you know what? We need a couple more. Just a couple more. Let's put one up here, and then also maybe one here. Yeah, I'm gonna like that better. I think I'll do just smaller ones though for these spots. Okay, and this card is complete. So this uses the Beach Birds stamps and coordinating dies from the Gina K release. I also used some other fun products. But just a fun beachy card, perfect for sending to someone, and especially if they love the beach. And maybe if you're going to be seeing them at some point, this is a great message to include. But there are other great gradients in the stamp set that you could have used instead. So that's going to do it for this card project. I hope you enjoyed and were inspired by the card that you saw me create today. I really enjoyed putting this together. I also hope you liked the new format for the video, kind of getting a little bit more of that crafty noise in the background, like we're creating together. I think it's a kind of a fun experience. So let me know in the comments below. Did you like the pre-recorded videos that I normally do, or do you like something more like this where you have the sounds of the crafting kind of happening along with it? So let me know in the comments below. In the meantime, I hope you'll check out the Gina K release. It's available over at Simon Says Stamp, so I have that linked below in the video description if you are curious about anything. But until next time, friends, thanks so much for joining me, and I'll be back soon with more to share.